Good morning. Welcome back to another fun-filled episode of Mr. Warren's economic video lesson thing. All right, so guess you just finished your do now. In your own words, explain what you think happens to your money after it enters a bank. Something we've maybe kind of touched on in the past, but maybe need a quick refresher. So, remember, I open up an account at the bank, open up a checking account. It's just like an extension of my wallet. So instead of keeping a couple $1,000s in my wallet at all times, I put it in the bank. I say, hey bank, here's $1,000. They give me a debit card. Then anytime I want to go spend part of that $1,000, I can just use the card, transfer it from the bank to whatever store I'm buying stuff from. Then we have things called savings accounts, which kind of like a checking account, except it's mainly for saving. Meaning, put money in, you don't touch it very, very often. It usually has certain limits, meaning you can only withdraw so much money at one point in time. You have to maintain a minimum balance. You can only make 4 withdrawals a week, something like that. So, whatever you guys have, make sure you have 4 sentences. Make sure you get it turned in the white binder. And then, we'll go ahead and get started on today. So, continuing our unit on money. First term we're going to cover is something kind of weird, kind of an odd name, but I didn't really come up with it. So. First term we're going to come up with is greenbacks. Greenbacks. Actually, I think this is 2 words. My mistake. It's 2 words. We'll see. So, greenbacks, also known as demand notes, or paper redeemable for gold. So, way back in the day, when they first started using paper money, just because it was much lighter and it was easier to carry around in your pocket, it's a lot easier than carrying around actual physical gold. Because if you guys have ever seen or held gold, it can be quite heavy, kind of weird to carry around in a pocket, even coin form. And so, instead of having that coin purse there goes my marker. Instead of having that coin purse that smacks you in the leg every time you take a step, or instead of having this giant backpack full of gold to carry everywhere, they said, hey, let's make paper notes that are worth certain amounts of gold. So, after a little bit of trial and error, they come up with something called a demand note, or people end up calling them greenbacks. Why do you think they called them that? Because they were green. So, paper redeemable for gold. So the way it worked, if I way back when banks still had like gold in their vaults, what I would do is I would take this demand note, I would take this dollar, and I would walk up to a bank teller and say, hey, I would like to redeem this for $1 worth of gold. And so then I'd give them the paper, and then they would give me the gold. It's almost like a receipt, I guess, because gold was what was actually worth money. This piece of paper, was just a piece of paper. It's kind of like maybe writing a check today. A check by itself really isn't worth much. So I take, let's bump it up. Let's say I take $1,000 and I give it to the bank teller, and they give me $1,000 worth of gold. They would count it out and measure it, and I would take that, and they go buy what I need to buy. And so, I think we all had that pretty much down. And so, for then and for the longest time, the United States economic system was on something called the gold standard. Gold standard. This is when all dollars and cents are backed up by certain amounts of gold. So what this meant was every single dollar and cent in circulation inside the United States, every single dollar and cent that was made was backed up by a certain amount of gold somewhere in the country. And they didn't make more money than there was actual physical gold. So the idea was that at any point in time, all you'd have to do is go somewhere and you could immediately redeem it for actual gold. And they didn't make more because, if I don't have enough gold to back up the dollar, then the dollar starts becoming worthless. It's just a piece of paper again at that point. And so they didn't make any more money than there actually was gold physically sitting in somebody's vault or bank or whatever somewhere. And so this, for the longest time, was the economic system that the United States was on. And so, fast forwarding, if we remember our lesson over the Great Depression, sort of around that time. Remember I told you how people went to the banks and they started freaking out that their money was disappearing, so they started taking all their money out at once. So this resulted in something called bank runs. And I suppose we could have covered this in previous lessons, but it kind of goes along with this one, hence why we're doing it now. Panics that result in many people trying to withdraw their money at the same time. So that's just the technical term for it. Everybody runs the bank, I get all my money out right here and now, and eventually, back then at least, ending in bank closures because they essentially ran out of money, so they couldn't do business. So I'm going to step aside for just a second. I need a second to get the notes copied down. Go ahead and hit pause. And go ahead and pause anyway because there should be a YouTube clip associated with this, and I'll give you a second to check it out, and then we'll move on. All right, so what you guys kind of saw there, hopefully the video played, just a clip from a movie that kind of showed what was going on. People panicking, banks running out of money, and in this case, the bank survived, but very, very, chances were slim to none. So, next term we're going to cover is something called the Federal Reserve Bank. This is a central bank that can lend money to others in a time of need. So this whole idea was kind of a result after the Great Depression. People didn't want bank runs. People didn't want another Great Depression to happen again. And so they started looking at the problem and say, okay, what went wrong? What can we do to fix this problem? So one of the major problems was none of the banks were connected. They had no extra source of money. They had no way to get extra cash if they needed it. And so the Federal Reserve was created, and the idea behind it is if a bank, say Chase Bank, all their clients come in, they start trying to take all their money out at the same time, all Chase has to do is call up, say, hey, can you, we need an emergency run of cash right now. And so usually they borrow from their sister banks, or if they need to, they can borrow from the Federal Reserve Bank. And they will literally drive, fly, whatever, money to that bank in order to cover it. And so then then Chase would simply pay back the Federal Reserve just like regular loan. So this is one thing they implemented to try to stop it from happening again. The second thing they did, and this will be our last term for the day, is something known as the FDIC. FDIC. And this stands for the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation. And it simply has one job: to insure consumers' money. So what do I mean by this? So, when you get a car, you get a house, you get insurance on your car or your house. And so, something happens to the car gets wrecked or whatnot, your car is protected. Your car will get repaired, your car will be replaced, whatever the plan is. So the FDIC is essentially an insurance company for banks. So for whatever reason, if I have something in a safety deposit box at that bank, or if that bank I do business at gets robbed or is completely burned to the ground, my money is safe. Because especially nowadays where you have computers and all the numbers are on screens, and they share that information with their sister banks, if the bank I go to burns down, all I got to do is just go to a different bank and hey, it pops up on their system. My money is safe. And then if I have physically something sitting in the bank itself, like in a safety deposit box, jewelry, something valuable, the bank will compensate me for the value of that of those items. So for whatever reason, I have a necklace that's worth $10,000. the bank will essentially cut me a check if something happens to that for $10,000 to make up for it. So the whole point behind this is to raise people's trust in the bank. Remember, the Great Depression happened because everybody lost faith that the banks would protect their money, that they would keep their money safe. So both of these are simply ways for people to have trust in the banks again, for people to, hey, I feel safe putting my money here, here you go. And because they feel safe about it, the banks have more money. The banks have more money, they can afford to loan that money out. When they loan that money out, people buy things, people start businesses, all that stuff. So I'll step aside for one more second, give you a second to get the rest of these copied down if you haven't already. All right, so your exit slip. Really simple. Thinking back to the gold standard, what do you think are two positive things and two negative things about the gold standard banking system? So some of these, you might have to think outside the box a little bit for one or two of these. But what are two advantages, what are two disadvantages? Make sure you have 4 sentences, and I'll see you guys for the next lesson.